Hello, hello, welcome to my video. My name is Kathleen, and I thought it would be fun to try to predict the plot for Gladiator II. Why? Because I have a degree in literature and literally nothing else to do with it. So I've been very excited for the trailer. I've been really excited since the trailer dropped. It is currently October 20th, so it's still about over a month before Gladiator II will come out in the US, and about 4-ish weeks till it hits theatres here in Germany. So I thought now's a great time to predict the plot. Hopefully before all the press screening starts, before the press tour starts, and we get a little bit of spoilers. So let's see. My goal is not to predict the entire film, but I hope that I can get close to the actual finished project, right? So I will be wrong at some points. I'm just going to tell you a story based off of the characters that we see in the trailer, based off what we know from that amazing Vanity Fair article that you might have read if you are so excited, just excited as I am, and from some historic podcasts, right? So I've listened to some podcasts about the historical characters of that period, just to find out how they lived, how they died, what happened in between, you know. So grab yourself a drink. You can already see how long this video will be. I don't know. I think this will be a very long video, so I probably have to break this up into 3 parts that will more or less work with a 3-act story structure. And yeah, I hope you're in for that time. I hope you're in for the ride. Get yourself cozy. You can also put this up in the back while you're doing something else. And yeah, if you're from the future and you've already seen the film and want to compare whether I was right or wrong, you're welcome to do that. But I assure you, you don't need to tell me where I went wrong, because I will go wrong somewhere. But be sure that I will run to the theatre opening weekend, okay? I want to know. I'm very curious, I'm very excited, I'm very nervous about this video. I've been putting this off for a while now, which is ridiculous because I used this as a procrastination project, and now I'm procrastinating my own procrastination project. So we're doing this today, right? If I seem nervous, I am, right? If I look into that direction, that's because my script is over there, okay? So I scripted most of the first part, and then for parts 2 and 3, we will have to improvise, I guess. So this will be funny, hopefully for you, at least. Maybe not for me, but yeah, I hope you enjoy that. You're very welcome to drop your own speculations about the plot in the comments section. You're very welcome to comment on my speculation. Just let me know what you think, okay? Good. So let me check my script. Yeah, I have to put a lot of disclaimers first. First of all, I'm not a historian. I have a degree in literature, which is why I thought that I should be able to come up with a good story, more or less, that might work for this film, but I won't get all the historical facts right. So if you are a historian, or if you're really good with history, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong somewhere. Yeah, you will hear me say the word a lot. Okay? I don't know how to edit. This is not a Ridley Scott production. I'm filming this on my iPad, so please be kind. Okay, so what else? Yeah, I haven't seen the film yet. Just to make that clear, I haven't seen the film yet, which you probably guessed, which is the whole point of this video, right? So it will be very embarrassing if I'm sitting in the theatre and everything is very far off from my idea of this film, right? But that will be fun for you, and I guess you want to be entertained, right? Yeah. Okay, so Gladiator II, the long-awaited sequel to Gladiator I, right? That film came out 25 years ago or something, so very long ago. And the question is, do we actually need a sequel? What can a sequel bring to the table that the first film could not? Well, hopefully we will find out at the end of this video series, and hopefully I will be right. Okay, so quick recap of Gladiator I, right? There will be some name dropping for the characters from the first film. You have to remember some things, you have to know some of these characters, their relationship, and whether or not they liked each other. Just, yeah. Okay, so I haven't seen the Gladiator I film in a few years, so I don't remember all of it, but I do remember the important parts, right? So we start off with the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who did not get a picture on my wall. I'm sorry, but he didn't last very long for the first film. So Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, one of the last good emperors, if there ever was any of those, he was the father to Commodus over here and Lucilla down here. And at the events of the first film, he's just died, right? Under mysterious circumstances. Not so mysterious to us, because we know that his son, Commodus over here, helped him get into the next world a little bit. Why? Because he wanted to be emperor. He's a very classical villain, very world domination, very evil. And yeah, we really like not to like him, right? So his antagonist, he's the antagonist of the film. The hero of the film is no other than Maximus, right? Or hero Maximus, the titular gladiator, right? Maximus over here was very close with Marcus Aurelius, and rumor has it that he was supposed to take over the throne after Marcus's passing. Commodus didn't like that, so he made sure that that would not happen. How did he make sure of that? Well, first of all, he had some plan to get Maximus accused of treason, and he also, which is very important, had Maximus's wife and son murdered. Very brutally, terrible. So the whole story of Gladiator I is basically Maximus trying to get revenge on Commodus. How does he do that? He's sold into slavery, and then he starts fighting in various arenas across the country until he finally ends up in the Colosseum, where he faces Commodus. He also kills him. It's an epic fight. Commodus is dead, but so is Maximus. Right? So Maximus doesn't make it out alive of the first film. Who doesn't make it? Who does make it out alive? Lucilla, right? Sister to Commodus. That was a weird incest storyline between these two as well. Well, involuntary on her part. Like, he had an eye on her. She did not like him back. That's a good thing. She liked someone else back, right? So it was implied that Lucilla here had a crush on Maximus. And maybe there even was some history. If you watch the trailer, you know the twist already, right? Okay. So Lucilla makes it out alive of the first film, and so does her son, right? She has a son called Lucius, who is about 12-ish years old at the end of in the first film, the end of it too, at the beginning. So in the first film, and now Gladiator II picks up about 20 years later, right? What happened in between these 20 years? Well, first and foremost, the time after Commodus's passing has been marked by uprisings, rebellions, and a lot of unrest in ancient Rome, right? At the end of the film, we kind of don't know who takes over after Commodus. The throne kind of remains vacant, but not for long, because people want to sit on that seat, even though it's the most dangerous seat, you could argue, because no one really sits on it very long, right? So people come into power, and then die off mysteriously. Okay? So lots of people have tried to make their own claim, and one person actually was a bit more successful because he's still around at the start of Gladiator II, more or less. I don't think he will be around for a long time, but that is Septimius Severus, right? I hope this is him. I don't know if you can really see the picture, but those, like, any picture that does not have the Vanity Fair logo in the corner is taken by me, except for these two. I took them from the internet. But these pictures are taken as screenshots from the trailer. So I know the quality is bad, but watch the trailer. I think you can find these pictures. So basically, this man over here is a man who's just looking very happy and mighty. You know, he's stretching his arms like this, wearing one of those laurel crowns. Looks very glorious. So I decided to use him as Septimius Severus. He's not very important for that film because he won't be around for long, so it's fine, right? Okay, so Septimius Severus founded the Severan dynasty, which is why I said that he was a bit more successful, because he had 2 children, right, who will succeed after his death. And these 2 children are Geta and Caracalla, right? In the film, these 2 are twin brothers. Historically, they weren't, but they were very close in age, so that's fine. So these 2 are named co-emperors after their father's passing. Historically, Septimius Severus died on campaign in Britain, which kind of reminds us of the first film, but I'm pretty sure that they're not going that way. So what I would guess, right, is that in order to keep tradition going, because why not? It's already worked for the first film. These 2 kind of don't want to wait for their turn on the throne. So what do? Well, they hatch a plan to get rid of their dad. And it works out, right? So after Septimius Severus is out of the way, these 2 are named co-emperors. The problem is they are equals in power, right? And that never works out, right? So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so let me check my script. In terms of setting the stage, so the thing is, when we watch a movie that is so far away from our own reality, we kind of need some exposition. We kind of need some explanation of what is happening, who's who, who's important, why do they matter, right? So we could have kind of a text block at the start of the movie being like, after 20 years of uprisings and upheaval, the Severan dynasty took over, and now that Septimius Severus is dead, his 2 sons are in power, something like that. Or we could have a more elegant introduction into the world that could work with a scene, right? And I would like to see kind of a funeral march for Septimius Severus over here. That would be interesting. So he's already dead. Maybe we have seen a very condensed flashback series of the various men on the throne and end up with him. And then we have a funeral march. And within that funeral march scene, we gather that his death was not very natural. That somebody may have assisted a little bit. And then it could be very well implied that these 2 had something to do with it, or at least one of them, right? I mean, it would be a nice brother project, but it would also work if just one of them did it. I would prefer if the 2 of them did it. That would work better for the story, right? Because as you can imagine, if these 2 did this, they have to keep this a secret, right? And you know that 2 can keep a secret best if one of them is dead, right? So we'll see. So these 2 are just very fresh on the imperial throne, and they're very eager to prove themselves, to make sure that people will remember their names, that history will remember their names. And how do they do that? This is the Roman Empire, so how do they do that? By conquering even more territory, right? So these two set their eye on the region of Numidia, yeah? And they send their best general out to make sure that Numidia is part of the Roman Empire. Who's that general? None other than Marcus Acacius, played by Pedro Pascal, right? We love it, we love to see him. I have to admit, I cannot really look at this man without seeing that scene from Game of Thrones. If you know, you know. And I hope we will be spared another trauma from Ridley Scott. So I would appreciate that, right? Okay, so these two here, Gaeta and Caracalla, send their general, Marcus Acacius, out to conquer Numidia. What is important is that Marcus Acacius is not really eager to do that, but he has to for some reason. We don't yet know what it is, but these two have something that they can use to control Marcus Acacius. We don't know yet what it is, but we can guess, right? So it's very, very subtle, but there's a thread that, like, they're not all friends, even though they pretend to be on the outside, right? Okay, so off to Numidia we go. Where is Numidia? Numidia is a region of northern Africa, so today it would be like the region of Algeria, Tunisia, right? And I'm not quite sure. I tried to look up whether it was already part of the Roman Empire at that time. Oh, by the way, we can place the actual year for Gladiator II based off of these two, right? So we're in the year 211 AD, right? So I did try to look up whether Numidia was part of the Roman Empire, and it seemed like it was. So I'm not quite sure what it is they want to conquer. Maybe some part of Numidia. I don't know. Doesn't matter. So the important part is that the Roman Empire is not satisfied. They want more territory, right? Just as you would imagine from two evil emperors, right? From two evil twins. And by the way, that will happen a lot. That will happen a lot. I apologize. But what I read in this Vanity Fair article, and I'll see whether I can find the quote. It's about these two. Where is it? There we go. Ridley Scott himself describes them as an almost replay of Romulus and Remus, who are the founding fathers of Rome, right? I'm sure you know the legend. I'm sure you know why it's called Rome and not Reims. I think it's very interesting that Ridley Scott puts that in that article, because technically that gives away a huge plot twist, I would assume, but we'll just see. We'll just see. We all know that legend, so maybe it's just name dropping, right? And I think this is also why he made them twins, when in reality they were not. Like, actually it was rumored that Gaeta over here was not a legitimate son of Septimius Severus. But never mind. So off to Numidia we go. As I said, Numidia is not yet part of the Roman Empire according to the Ridley Scott universe. And who's in Numidia? Take a guess. Well, who has made himself alive over there? Lucius, our hero of the story, the center of this whole film. This is why he's over here surrounded by everyone else. So Lucius has grown up, as we can see. So 20 years ago, his mom Lucilla sent little Lucius off to safety in Numidia. Why? As I said, her brother Commodus was just murdered, more or less, And people were thinking, like, who's next? And the problem with families in power is that if one of them is dead and you want to take over, you have to get rid of the rest too. You have to be very thorough. So Lucius was very much in danger as a child, right? He could not take over as a child. So what did Mom do? She sent him off to keep him safe. And she sent him off very far away. But she didn't go with him. So he's over there all by himself. And he's very angry about that. Right? So over the last 20 years, Lucius has been in hiding. I kind of think of him like a Luke Skywalker situation, right? Living with his aunt and uncle, tending to a farm or something, right? So he's been over there, very far away from the Empire. He's harbored a lot of anger and resentment. Like he has not very fond feelings for his mom. But what he does have is a family, so we're happy for him. We need to establish a very happy status quo for Lucius to send him on his classical hero's journey, which means that we will take all of that away, right? So, Lucius over here, living his best life in Numidia, he found himself a wife over here. Like, neither the article nor the trailer mentions her name, so I had to name her a wife. But I think she looks like a Diana with that bow and arrow. She looks like an archer. So I like to think of her as Diana. I don't know. So he has found himself a wife. Probably she doesn't even know who he is, right? He kept this a secret. This is very essential to his character. Nobody knows who he is. And he likes to forget. He's like pushing all of that away, right? So he found himself a wife. The article also tells us that these two have a child, right? And I used this picture. I'm not sure if you can see. Yeah, I think so. And I named this child Junior. I am aware, though, that this is probably a flashback scene, and this child is supposed to be Lucius when he was younger, right? But I don't have a different picture because the trailer doesn't mention a child. I'm a bit irritated by that because I think that's quite essential. Like, this child is very important to my plot. So I'm like, we need this child, okay? We need this child on the wall. I will call them Junior. And the thing is, the article also explicitly said he lives there with his wife and child, and the article does not reveal the child's gender. So I am hoping for a daughter, but looking at all the testosterone on my wall, I don't want to get my hopes up too high, but you never know, right? So Junior, I will refer to them as Junior, right? So Lucius, his wife, Diana, as I might call her, and Junior live a happy life. Maybe they live on a farm, they have a very nice domestic family life. But we need to know that Lucius also has some background in fighting in the military. Maybe he worked as a soldier when he was a bit younger, right? Since it's been 20 years since the events of the first one. He's about in his early 30s, something like that. So he's been through a lot already, and now he just wants some peace with his wife and the child. So we see some happy time, some family time. Of oh, he has a good life. Yeah, and then the Roman ships are seen on the horizon, and things go down very quickly, right? So, wait a second. Let me get my script. Oh yeah, what? Again, something I read in that article, and I want to share this with you because I love it. So, Numidia, as I said, the region of Northern Africa. Ridley Scott is very, very fond of telling us that Lucius, and I think that's important, so I'm mentioning, Lucius is very much an outsider in the media, right? He doesn't look like everyone else. Instead, Ridley Scott himself describes him as fair-skinned, blue-eyed, and red-haired. And I'm not quite sure if I agree with the red hair. Like, you can tell me. You can tell me. I guess if there's some blood in the hair, it's kind of red, so maybe that works. But other than that, I don't know. The important part is that he is very much an outsider in the media, right? He's not really at home there, even though he tried to make himself home, right? So the outsider character is very important because he will keep that role for a while, right? Okay. So, they're all living their best lives until one day the Roman fleet arrives. And then we get a very dramatic, very bloody battle. Like, I will not go into trying to predict any of that. Like, it looks like a siege battle, so like the ships have these like catapult towers that destroy the city walls, something. It's going to be epic, it's going to be huge. We're going to see a huge battle in like the first 15 minutes of the film or something, right? So it's gonna be brutal. That shouldn't be much of a surprise. This is a film about a gladiator. Like, lots of people will die in this film. Yeah, so. And we will see that Marcus over here, like, he's really good at fighting. Like, he's a really good general. And according to Pedro Pascal himself, that means he's a really good killer. So I'm interested to see what that looks like. So he hatches some very clever plans to take over the city and destroy everything. So who's fighting against the Roman army to try to defend their homes? Of course, Lucius, since again, like, he has some background in fighting, and his wife, who also has some background in fighting. Like, she looks like a professional. Like, we want to give her some spotlight, right? So they're fighting fiercely, but to no avail, right? So things don't really work out. It's a bloody battle, right? And then something happens. I did print a picture. I'm not sure if you can see that. This is a moment from the trailer again. So this is a screenshot. Can you see that? That's a bit, yeah. Can you see that? That's the wife, and that is an arrow. So she doesn't make it out of that battle. Like, poor Diana, killed off in the first 15 minutes of the film or something. Yeah, one, that reminds us of something. And two, we're like, ugh, that's such an old hat, right? Killing off the wife. Why do we do that? Well, there's a reason for that. Just to give you some outside knowledge. Killing off the main character's love interest, usually female love interest, is called fridging. Why is that? Let me read from Wikipedia to you, right? So, women in refrigerators, or fridging, is a literary trope. This is why we've seen that multiple times before, right? Coined by Gail Simone in 1999, describing a trend in fiction which involves female characters facing disproportionate harm, such as death, maiming, or assault, to serve as plot devices to motivate male characters. Yeah. So the reason she dies is so that we have a plot, right? And we get a revenge plot. We don't like that. The sad thing is, it kind of works, right? So Lucy's over here, very desperate, very angry, wants to take revenge. Who does he make responsible for murdering his wife? Marcus over here. Not necessarily because he himself shot that arrow that killed her, but because he led the army that, of the attack that resulted in poor Diana's death, right? So these two mortal enemies established very early on in the film, like they don't like each other, right? I'm not sure if Marcus is even aware of that. Maybe they even face each other on the battlefield at some point in the first fight. I don't know. Could be interesting, because we know from the trailer that they will see each other again, right? So Lucius over here mourning his wife, doesn't know what happened to Junior, but he's still alive, and that is why he's taken prisoner, right? He's taken in as prisoner of war, and also that's not a good fate. So there is either execution waiting for him, or being sold into slavery. And he's a young man, looks quite strong. We know what happens, right? Okay, so he's out of the picture for a second, but I believe, and this is why I'm saying that Junior is important, I think there is a key scene with Junior over here, who obviously wasn't involved in the fighting, but who stayed behind with maybe some elderly people, some other children, right? And when the Romans claimed the city, like there's a moment from the trailer, when Pedro here, looking not very happy with himself, like you can't see that in this picture, but he looks very sad. He looks really sad. I think that's his personality, right? So he claims the city for the glory of Rome. Not very convinced, right? But, you know, one does as one's told, right? So he claims the city. They probably kill off a lot of people, but then they find a child, very brave child. Maybe that child has, for some reason, has their father's sword or something. And Junior over here is like, I'm not going down easily. So he's trying to fight off the soldiers. I imagine kind of a very sad scene where this little child with a sword much too big is trying to fight off some soldiers. And they're very mean to him. They bully them more for some, right? They make fun of poor Junior over here. And Pedro, Marcus, right? Pedro, like I might refer to him as Pedro, right? Because Pedro Pascal, right? So Pedro over here, very much typecast that he is, he's like, people being mean to a child, that's not okay. So he steps in, but of course Junior's like, I don't want your help. So Junior is trying to ward off Marcus over here. Marcus immediately impressed by like the fighting spirit, maybe even that bravery of Junior. And he's like, where's your parents? You know, where's your parents? Hopefully, Junior didn't really witness their mom's death. Maybe they've seen their dad being dragged away into slavery or something. So they're dead, right? And Pedro, the man that he is like, child unsupervised, not on my watch. So what is he going to do? He's going to take Junior in. He's like, you're coming with me. I'm gonna be your new family. Something like that. Obviously Junior's not very fond of that. Obviously, like he's not very enthusiastic about being basically abducted by their father's or their mother's murderer, their father's whatever enemy, right? So they're not happy. But they're like, okay, right? They don't have a choice. So Marcus here taking Junior with him. Right? I would be so shocked sitting in that theater if the child was going to die in the movie. I would be so shocked, especially if it was Pedro over here doing that. Like, I don't know. Oh yeah. Well, we'll see about that. So that is my first guess, right? The wife is dead, sure, but the child, no. The child survives, and they matter for the rest of the plot, right? I think the fact that we don't see them in the trailer is a hint that they are meant as a surprise. I'll just try to read that into it, okay? So, that is how this film starts, right? Lucius dragged away from his home. Junior dragged away from his home, from their home. Marcus, having committed a bunch of war crimes, like, we're like, not cool, right? So we have to see him be very brutal. Like, he starts out as kind of the enemy, right? We understand why Lucius over here has this revenge plan forming in his mind of killing that man over here, right? We understand. We can relate to that. That is also one of the reasons why it's so popular to kill off a love interest, because that means that our hero over here, our classic hero, has kind of an excuse, a justification to commit some serious crimes themselves, right? So because Lucius over here, the classical hero that he is, cannot be a cold-blooded murderer. But the thing is, this is a film about gladiators, so we can assume that he's going to take down, to kill a lot of people, like a lot of people, right? That's the whole point, right? But that doesn't really align with our sense of morality, right? But the only excuse for that is that someone else did something horrible to him or someone that he loved before, right? And that kind of gives us an excuse to be like, oh yeah, well, he killed the wife first, right? Everyone else on the way is more or less collateral damage, but we'll get into that. But by the way, this is also why Maximus over here had to die at the end of the film, right? He committed so many murders. He killed a lot of people. And there's not much redemption possible after that. We'll see how that plays out here. So that would be interesting, because otherwise, like, their parallel already is very apparent, right? So, since this is a sequel and not a remake, this film has to bring something new to the table, right? Okay, so what happens next? We're going back to Lucius over here, right? I find it a little weird that Pedro Pascal referred to Paul Mescal as Brick Wall Paul. Yeah, I don't know. So, well, yeah, we'll get back to that. Okay, so Lucius is sold into slavery. He's not happy about that, obviously, right? He's not the only one, of course, right? I'm not sure if you can actually see him, but I think he also has a friend over here. Like, it's that person. Watch that scene in the trailer, right? It's my favorite moment in the trailer. I will come back to that. So to see his face, right? And I think this man also is from Namibia, and they know each other. Like, maybe they've been friends, or maybe they bond over, their fates. You know. So these two meet. He makes a friend. I don't have a name for him, so I had to refer to him as the unnamed friend. I'm sorry. I hope he gets a cool name, right? But we have to name him the unnamed friend, because we also have the wise friend for a little later. So these two are not the same, right? Okay, so Lucius here, sold into slavery. And then we see a lot of arena fighting. The first trailer didn't really have that, but the second trailer had a scene that was clearly in like an outside arena, like not the Colosseum, like an arena on the outskirts of Rome, maybe somewhere very else. Maybe we're still in the media somewhere around. So Lucius and his fellow prisoners of war are about to be executed, probably. So they're just thrust into an arena with lots of spectators around, and then some wild animals are let loose, right? And these animals in the trailer, they're monkeys, right? So basically the first arena fight, which I guess we're going to see, is Lucius against a horde of rabid monkeys. And I have to admit, I don't really like that, but it also reminds me very much of the Hunger Games. If you've seen Catching Fire, you know there are some monkeys around, and there are some Hunger Games moments, I feel. So yeah, I'm not sure about that monkey scene. Also, the monkey is just shouting at Lucius, and Lucius is shouting back. And I think that's a bit primal. I don't know, but maybe I will feel very differently when I'm in the theater, when the adrenaline is pumping. Maybe I'll feel that. You know, maybe I'm like, yeah, go for it. So he's fighting against this rabid monkey, and who's watching? Somebody's watching. Macrinus. We haven't met him before, right? We haven't met him yet, but a great way to introduce Macrinus. Macrinus is not really a historical figure, even though he's probably inspired by someone whose actual name was Macrinus. So I will base his character a little bit on that historic Macrinus. Right? Okay, so who's Macrinus? Again, let me have a look at my Vanity Fair article. I think that one is, yeah, okay. So, Macrinus, right? Played by Denzel Washington. He is a dashing power broker. Love that. So, and what else is he? He's more than just dashing. He's an arms dealer who supplies food for the armies in Europe, supplies wine and oil, makes steel, makes spears, weapons, I don't know why there is a distinction, cannons, and catapults. So he's a very wealthy man. Yeah, we get that. And instead of having a stable of racehorses, he has a stable of gladiators. Right? Also, love that. Ridley Scott says, he's beautiful. Yeah, he is. He's beautiful. He drives a golden Ferrari. I got him a gold-plated chariot. Love that. It's a vibe, right? We love it. We love it. I do think it's a bit questionable that this man is basically in charge of the entire European legion, right? He's the one who supplies food, arms, wine, oil. Like, I would think that it's not too smart to have one person responsible for all of that. But I guess that's kind of on brand, right? So yeah, where is that about in my notes? Right. So I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Like, obviously he wants all of that, right? Obviously he's hustling. Like, this man really got himself where he wanted to be, right? I just wonder, like, how did all the others, namely these two over here, how are they fine with this one man basically monopolizing the military, or at least a part of it? It's like, well, I guess they have it coming, whatever it is that's going to happen, you know? Because we know that he's not here just to look good, right? Like, there is something more to his character, right? We know that. Okay, so Macrinus over here, he sees Lucius fighting that monkey, and opposite to me, he's very impressed, right? He's like, wow, so much rage, you know, so much rage. That boy, like, he's got some anger issues, right? And he thinks that's a great starting point for a gladiator, right? So gladiators, I guess, in this world need some reason to blow off steam or something. I don't know, right? So Macrinus over here is like, I think he would be a good gladiator. So he buys him, you know, just as easy as that. Obviously, Lucius makes it out alive of that monkey fight. Obviously, like, he's the main character. Like, there will be moments where, like, oh my god, that is dangerous, but he's the main character, right? He will survive for most of the film, for sure, right? Okay, so he's the main character. It's like, yeah, sure. So Macrinus buys Lucius. Lucius obviously doesn't like that. He's like, so what, right? Not happy. He's not willing to collaborate with anything that Macrinus wants to of him, right? So there is a scene in the trailer where he beats up the gladiator trainer down here, like he got his own picture. I think this man, I also don't know what his name is, I just named him the gladiator trainer. I imagine him to be like the right hand to Macrinus, so these two, they are very close, right? Historically, or traditionally, gladiator trainers were retired gladiators, right? So when he says that the arena turns slaves into gladiators and gladiators into free men, I guess this is his road to freedom, right? So his backstory. Like, he also started out as a slave, bought by Macrinus maybe, but then he became a gladiator, and now he's retired, training other gladiators. And I guess Lucius is not very friends with him because he beats him up, right? So these two, they don't like each other, you know. There's some beef between these two. Right? Yeah, he's very much the main character. He has some serious main character energy. He's just stubborn and angry, not particularly likable in a way, but we know that he has good reasons for all of that, right? He's still processing his wife's demise, doesn't know where his child is. Like, yeah, we understand, right? Okay. So Lucius bought by Macrinus. And Macrinus is like, let's go back to Rome. Because obviously, if you want to be someone, you gotta go to Rome, right? What do we know about Macrinus other than he's very rich, very dashing, and just bought people for fun, right? What else do we know? We know that he also used to be an enslaved person, right? So he too was sold into slavery for some reason, but he no longer is, right? There is a scene when he says, like, I was owned, so he's a freed man now. We don't know what his backstory is yet. I don't know. I imagine him, like, in kind of a gladiator situation himself. Like, that would be kind of sad if he went through all of that himself and was like, yeah, let's inflict this trauma on other people, but I guess that's the circle of violence, so maybe we see that. My first thought was like, now that he's no longer owned, maybe he isn't because he murdered his master, but that doesn't add up, because if a slave, an enslaved person, really did murder their master, the whole household would be crucified, right? So like household, by household I mean the other enslaved people in the household, not the master's family, right? So I don't think that's realistic, right? So Macrinus over here used to be enslaved himself, then got himself out of it somehow, maybe through being a gladiator, because we know that the arena turns slaves into gladiators and gladiators into free men. How does it work? Well, as a gladiator, you gain a lot of popularity, a lot of wealth, right? Lots of people will place bets on you, they will shower you with gifts, like you're basically like a celebrity, right? If you're good, right? So people love your performance, love the show that you put on. They will show you their affections in questionable ways. But there is the possibility that as a gladiator, you are given freedom, right? And you're given freedom by given a symbolic wooden sword, right? So maybe this is what we have with Macrinus over here. Maybe he just retired, like, I don't know. Maybe he just gained a lot of money as a gladiator, and now he's retired. Okay. So what is important is that he is the richest man in town. So he's got a lot of money, like a lot of money, made with weapons. So what we also know is that since he makes money out of weapons, he advocates for war a lot. Like, peace is not on his agenda. Like, peace doesn't get him anywhere, right? So this man is about to cause some trouble, right? We're going back to Rome. It's like, okay, we already sacked Numidia, destroyed everything. Where else to go, right? So probably the catapults on the ships came from here, right? Well, we're not sure if we like him. We obviously we don't. Like, he is very much the villain of this film. Like, are there other villain characters? Yes. But who is very much the evil mastermind of this film? Macrinus, right? You don't hire Denzel Washington just to look good. So he's like, yeah, we'll do this. Okay, so we're going back to Rome, right? And what do we get there? So, first of all, we see Lucius, his friends, and all the other prisoners being brought back in carriages. Like, it's not very glamorous. So obviously they're not really excited about. They're brought to the arenas or to the gladiator school, the ludus, right? To take their rooms, whatever, and start training, right? They start training for what is to come. Who else returns to Rome? Marcus over here. Sad Marcus. Marcus, after having killed so many people, he's going home. And then we learn the next plot twist. Like, who would have seen that coming? Marcus is no bachelor. No. Marcus also made himself a home with someone. He has a beloved. He has a sweetheart. And who's that? Yeah, it's not very hard to guess. Lucilla, right? So we as the audience, we're shocked. We're like, oh my god, Marcus over here. And Lucilla. What? Since Marcus just murdered or is responsible for the death of Lucilla's daughter-in-law, we're like, there is some conflict coming up here, Obviously, he doesn't know that Diana here and Lucilla have something in common, but anyway. So he comes home, meets up with Lucilla, and this is also how we learn that Lucilla is the kind of leverage that these two, Gis and Caracalla, have against Marcus over here, right? They just threaten Lucilla a little bit. They're like, you go to war for us, you know, you go to claim Numidia for glory, or else, like, we can't guarantee that Lucilla is safe and sound, right? The Market has to do as he's told, because he loves Lucilla. I think their love is genuine. I think it's a beautiful story they have, you know, after Maximus's death and Lucius's flight. Lucilla's like, finally found someone. Lovely pager, right? So we're happy. We're happy for now. We're like, yeah. Did he kill her daughter-in-law? Yes, but she doesn't know that. He doesn't know that. Does Lucilla's son, want to kill him? Yeah. So this is a messy family dynamic, and we love that, right? So we're like, that will be interesting for family dinner. But okay, so we learned that these two are happy together. And what else is it? Marcus brings someone with him, remember? Right, he isn't alone. He's not returning to Rome all by himself, but he also brings Junior. He's like presenting Junior to Lucilla. You're like, this is Junior. Like, I don't know. Like, Junior will give themselves a different name. Like, I don't know what their name is. Like, I don't know. Doesn't matter. By the way, we'll come back to names later, right? If you want to know something about a character, maybe we can do that now. If you want to know something about a character, Storytelling 101, look up their name, you know? In 90%, that name has a secret meaning, like a hidden meaning. It matters, right? So, for example, let's just you're getting an example here. Maximus, the greatest. Marcus, that's a form of the Latin god Mars, who is the god of war, right? So that's very much a soldier's name. Acacius, I'll keep that for later, because that will come in later, right? So that is important for later. Soldier, Marcus, fighting. I know that Lucilla and Lucius, like, those names are not coincidental, because these are more or less historical characters. Not really, because Lucilla, by the time of the events of Gladiator I, was already dead. Instead of having an incestuous affair with her brother, she actually tried to kill him, and then he exiled her and had her assassinated, right? So she was basically dead, right? Doesn't matter. But for this film, we need her, right? Lucilla actually had a husband, like the historical Lucilla, and also Lucilla in the film, had a husband called Lucius Verus, right? So Lucius Verus is the one who gave Lucius his name, right? But what is striking, and what I find very interesting, is the fact that both their names, Lucilla and Lucius, they come from the Latin word lux, which means light, right? And if you think of, like, the metaphorical level, a light means hope, right? This is why they make it out alive out of the first film. They are the hope, literally the next generation. And now we see whether the light's still shining bright, right? Okay, so just a quick tangent about names, right? Those names, yeah, we don't get into that, because, like, I don't know about Gaeta, I forgot, but basically those are nicknames, right? Those are not their Roman emperor's names, right? Those are nicknames. I think I remember that Caracalla was some kind of, like, military cloak or something. So his name is at least linked to the military, which we will come back to. But the important names, Lucius, Lucilla, and Marcus Acacius, right? So I wonder what name Lucius Jr. came up with. I don't know. We'll see in the film. We'll see. Right, so Marcus presents Lucius over here to Lucilla as like, this is Junior, we're the family now. And Lucilla is like, well, that child, they kind of remind me of someone. We, as the audience, are like, girl, of course. You know, of course. They probably look like their father when Lucilla sent Lucius away, right? So she's like, of course. I will care for them. I will raise them as if they were my own child, right? So let's hope that Lucius here is not living a slave's life with Lucilla and Marcus, but they just take them out, right? So Marcus over here obviously sees an orphan, is like, I'll add them to my collection, right? So Lucius Junior is safe for now, right? We're good. Lucilla, Marcus, happy together, reunited, but of course they know that now that you're back, these two will have something new. You know, well, it's just a matter of time till they come up with something else, right? So their happy reunion is a little bit tainted, right? Yeah. And then we learn a little bit about Marcus's backstory, right? So since we now know that he's not just a cold-blooded killer, a soldier who likes to hatch up a plan to murder people, like we know that he also has a wife, maybe, right? He has a sweetheart, you know, he can be a very gentle person. This is why I like to translate this name very, very loosely. This is not really correct, but very, very loosely to the gentle warrior. Right? So, because this is what he is, right? He's very gentle, very loving. And we learn a little bit about his backstory. So, what is his backstory? Marcus over here, we know, again, from the Vanity Fair article, I didn't make this up, that he served under Maximus. We remember Maximus being a general, yeah? He had his own soldiers, and he had this honor code, which is very important. And that was strength and honor. Remember? Okay. Don't worry, it will come into play later. Right? So, Marcus over here, trained under Maximus, took in his moral code, and was like, yeah, probably Maximus over here is kind of an idol. I don't know. So, these two knew each other. Marcus was not part of the first film, but doesn't matter, right? So these two knew each other. But I think there's more to that. In my idea of the story, Marcus is not from the aristocracy. He wasn't born into richness or anything, but he worked himself up in the military, right? So he's one of the people. You know, he's very a normal dude that worked himself up in the military and gained his own soldiers' loyalty, just like Maximus, right? So people look up to him now. He's a good person, more or less. As good of a person as a Roman general can be, right? Okay, so he's one of the people, right? Worked himself up, and he thought he was actually doing something good. He thought he was fighting for a noble cause, you know. And then over the years, he realized that actually there is nothing noble about razing cities, killing people, you know, massacring whole villages, whole civilizations, taking people prisoner. Not very noble, right? There is nothing great about murdering someone who's in pain, who's scared, screaming for their mother, you know. And he's like, oh, he doesn't want to do it anymore, right? He's done with it. You see that he looks so sad. He looks so sad. He looks so burnt out, right? So I think that he was a very brightly burning light. And as we know, if you've watched any other Ridley Scott movie, the light that burns twice as brightly also burns only half as long, right? So he's burned out, right? Doesn't want to do it anymore. He just wants to be at home with his sweetheart, maybe start a garden, learn something about mushrooms, just in case the spore wars are about to come. You never know, right? You never know what the future holds. But what we do know, what his future holds, is a celebration, you know, some party. There will be some victory games, right? Okay, and this is the next chapter. So, let me get my script ready. Some victory games. So, whenever a general, like, for the sake of the emperors, wins over a city, like, gains a huge victory, they have to celebrate, obviously, right? They have to show their general that was great, right? So, Gita and Caracalla organize a great triumphal march through Rome. This is very traditional. So Marcus also, like, he and his soldiers, like all the legion, they parade through the city, and they also show off what they brought back from their conquest, right? What did they bring back? Well, obviously some material goods, like maybe jewels, maybe gold, maybe food, and people, right? Most importantly, people. And so they parade through the city, show off what they got, and he ends up climbing the stairs to the imperial palace. And there he reunites with Geta and Caracalla. Those two, very fashionable in white and gold. You know, we love that scene from the trailer. And he's like, yeah, you're back in town, you know. Geta, very happy with what he did. Caracalla, I imagine Caracalla as having kind of a puppy crush on Marcus Acacius. Caracalla is like, Marcus is such a good soldier. He's the ideal of a Roman general. He's good, you know, he looks good. Like, I imagine Caracalla having kind of a puppy crush, right? So they're like, he really looks at Marcus in the trailer as if he was like, oh my god, there he is, you know, the one and only, right? So these two, they present him with a very fancy laurel crown, put it on his head. They also get out a sword. I don't know what they're supposed to do with it. They're not going to knight him, right? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with it. Maybe they just give him the sword as a symbol for his victory or something. And then Geta says, there are victories yet still to come. We already guessed that. We already knew that they would send Marcus just out on the next war, right? They would be like, yeah, good, you got this, but let's do it again. You know? Marcus, on the other hand, since he's one of the people, you know, he's smart, he knows a little bit, he's a bit more realistic. He's like, Rome has many subjects. She must feed them, right? And then comes one of my favorite lines from the trailer. Love it. Because Caracalla, I do believe that Geta, like, he's a bit more strategic, more thoughtful, let's say it that way, than his brother. Caracalla, on the other hand, like, he's the bloodthirsty, little evil horror twin, right? These two are the horror twins, but if you had to say that one of them is worse, gotta be Caracalla, right? Like, I love this picture. Like, he looks so happy with his gold chains and the earrings and the crown, and my favorite, his golden tooth. You can't see that in the picture, but he has a gold tooth. Love it. So he responds to, Rome has many subjects, she must feed them. Very realistic problem, and we know that food kind of is monopolized by someone. So, you know, right. So responds, "They can eat war." Iconic. Love that. Obviously, that's a callback to Marie Antoinette, right? Marie Antoinette, who allegedly, she didn't really say that, said that, let them eat cake. You know, remember that scene, like that moment in the French Revolution, you know, people were hungry, there wasn't enough bread to feed everyone, and when people told Queen Marie Antoinette that people were starving because there was no bread, she was like, let them eat cake. That didn't happen, right? There's no proof that Marie Antoinette ever said that, but it doesn't matter. The funny thing is that Marie Antoinette, funny, like that line feels very much like a callback to Ridley Scott's previous film, which was Napoleon, and we know that Napoleon rose to power after the French Revolution that got Marie Antoinette killed, right? So, is this foreshadowing? We will see, we will see. But I love that Ridley Scott is quoting his own movies, right? I love that. Okay, kind of, right, kind of. Like, what we know is that this film, just as Napoleon, is written by the same man, right? And I haven't watched Napoleon, but I know that it takes some creative liberty with the history. So, I guess we get that here too. But that doesn't matter because we want to see a cool film, an epic film, right? So it's fine. So Caracalla, they can eat war. Iconic. Obviously, Marcus is like, oh, you can't eat war. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Caracalla doesn't care. Like, that is his personality, right? He's that rich kid who doesn't care. That's important. Like, these two, they don't really care for the people. They only care for themselves, for their glory, for their pretty jewelry, you know, for their gold teeth. Like, but maybe Gesa is a little bit like, right, if people have nothing to eat, people aren't happy, right? So maybe he has a point, right? I think it's important to establish that these two see a little bit more eye to eye than Caracalla, right? Caracalla is more like looking up to Marcus, being like, he's the greatest, right? So, but nevertheless, they're like, oh, people can eat war, whatever. And then they're holding the grand games, to celebrate Marcus's victory over Numidia, right? What are the games? The games are like multiple day festivities held in the arena, in the Colosseum, not necessarily just the Colosseum, but in the Colosseum. There is food, there is entertainment, people don't have to work, people love it, right? It's a great way to distract people and to keep people from thinking, right? So if you're super entertained and you have a full belly, you won't think of rebellion, right? That's how it works, right? So the games begin, right? And this is what we're in for, like 1 hour and 15 minutes till we get to the games, right? Till we get to the games. But okay, so what are the games? Like, what is happening? Well, we already know that Macrinus over here has bought lots of prisoners of war, and he doesn't know what to do with them. No, just kidding. Obviously, he bought them for a purpose. He won't make all of them into gladiators, right? So these games are more of a casting, in a way. So it's like, if you survive this, you might become one of my gladiators, right? I don't think that all of them are intended to be gladiators, right? Because the thing is, gladiators were actually like trained professional athletes. It took like 2 years to become a gladiator, right? You don't just get a sword and fight a monkey and that's it, right? Gladiators didn't fight monkeys anyway, but doesn't matter, right? Like the actual gladiatorial combat situations in these films, that doesn't matter. Like it's for the film, doesn't matter, right? So these games are kind of a casting, right? How do they decide who gets to be a gladiator? Well, you survive, right? So, and I think this is where we get the naval reenactment scene from the trailer. Love that. I think it looks epic. Love it, right? I did learn in one of those podcasts that actually by the time this story is said, the Colosseum wasn't flooded anymore, but you know, doesn't matter. So these two are like, yeah, nothing is too expensive for our friend Marcus over here. Let's flood the Colosseum. This is epic, right? I think epic is the word for this film. Epic. You know, like this is the word that Ridley Scott uses, that Pedro Pascal uses, that Paul Mescal uses. Love it, you know? When I think of that, it's like Paul is feeling epic, you know? And if you get that reference, 100 moonstones to you. Okay, love that. So, we're feeling a little epic over here. The Colosseum is flooded, and there is a naval battle that Lucius and his fellow prisoners are supposed to reenact, right? I honestly don't know how reenactments worked back then, if people were given kind of a script to follow, you know, kind of when to die, how to, I don't know, right? Because the point of these reenactments is to establish the glory of Rome, to be like, yeah, we conquered everyone, like, we defeated everyone, right? So just imagine we have two ships, right? And let's just for the sake of drama, put Paul here onto the loser ship and be like, yeah, no, go and fight, right? In order to have a reenactment, we know how the story is supposed to end, right? So one of these ships must go down, right? And also, there are sharks in the water. Love that. Sharks. Yeah. Anyway, so if you fall off that ship, not good, right? But also, if you're on the ship, people are trying to kill you too. Like, chances aren't good. The odds are not in their favor. You know? Okay. So, let's just say they put Lucius here. Lucius. They put him on the loser ship. Like, yeah, that ship is about to be defeated. Because that's entertaining, right? Macrinus over here, I hope that he's like, just see how that goes, you know? We'll see. Because obviously, like, he just bought this super angry guy. He's like, we want to have something from it. I'm not sure he wants to, you know, like, burn him off in the first fight, but, you know. Anyway, so Lucius here on the loser ship. His friends are with him. Like, maybe he's not around yet. I don't know. Maybe he's already around. But his unnamed friend is around. Like, some other people are around. And they obviously, like, they're scared. This is a life or death situation. Here comes my favorite quote of the whole trailer. The whole reason we're doing all of this, right? I think the only reason this trailer resonated so much with me. I love that line. I actually created a sticker, so I'm going to show you, but I won't put it up. But the most important line, this is about survival. This is basically the whole motto of this movie, right? So, Marcus and his friend, Lucius, oh my god, I have to call him Paul, I think. So, Paul and his friends, right? Not friends, but, you know, they're in the same boat, literally. So, he obviously got it. He's like, this is about survival. This is not about being good or anything at fighting. This is about surviving, making it out alive. right? So the only thing we gotta do is to survive, right? But obviously, since they're on the loser boat, things aren't looking good. Maybe the boat, like, what's the word? Has a lag? Like, is that the word? I don't know. Maybe water is coming into the boat. Maybe the boat is sinking, right? All the sharks are around something, right? And that other boat is trying to kill everyone, like people on the other boat. Because obviously they want to survive too, right? And they are told that if you make it out of this boat, you gotta live, right? So everyone wants to live, right? This is how all of these films work. Because the main characters, like, they fight each other because they want to live. Like, they got a reason to live, more or less, right? He just wants to live long enough to kill Commodus, but that is a reason as good as any, right? And he too, he wants to make it out alive, so that one day he will face Marcus over here, right? So they don't want to die on that ship, you know, reenacting some legendary battle. No. So everyone's fighting hard, and obviously we love Paulie here, because he is a smart cookie, and he hatches up a plan so that he really defeats the other boat, right? I don't know what that plan is. Like, they ram the other boat and something happens, right? So for some reason, like, he's like very strategic. He gets it. He's like, yeah, we can use that. Maybe he's even using the sharks. He's like, yeah, gotta make do. Because obviously, like, he knows. He grew up in the Roman society. Like, he grew up watching these games. He knows what people want. He knows what the game makers kind of have in their sleeves. Like, he knows. So he's like, yeah, we've got to use that against them. He's very smart. We love it. We love it, right? So he saves everyone's asses. Like, obviously some people don't make it out, right? There are some people being eaten by sharks. That's sad. But the important part is he makes it out. And he defies the game makers. Whoever, at that point, maybe the game makers, like, whoever, like, they don't make it. They're like the Seneca Crane of this film. Like, whoever the game maker is, since Lucius and the rest kind of rewrite history, they gotta go, right? So that job is free to be taken up by someone else. That's a good thing, right? Maybe that was his plan after all. I didn't write that in my script. I just came up with that. So maybe that's brilliant. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's good. Okay, so maybe Macrinus was like, yeah, put him on the loser boat so that he will clash everyone's plans and I can take the job of head game maker. By the way, that's called like Edi Ludi, I think, right? So, because I want him in that position, but I didn't know how he got there. But maybe this is how he gets there. Love it. Okay, so he has defied everyone, and then we get another Katniss Everdeen moment. I love that. We had the monkeys. I'm not sure about this naval reenactment thing, you know, but then somehow he gets hold of a crossbow, you know, and he shoots an arrow into the lodge where the emperors sit, you know. But who sits with them? He's not really aiming at the emperors. He's aiming at Marcus over here. He's like, I'm coming for you. You know, better watch out. But also, who's sitting with the emperors and Marcus? And this is where he realizes that, one, Mom is still alive, and two, she's collaborating with the evil twins and the murderer of his wife. That's a shock. He didn't expect that. You know, he's like, what? Mom is still alive? She didn't come and get me? Instead, she's living her best life with the emperors. She found herself a new husband. Like, what? forget about him. We know that she didn't, but he doesn't know that. He's like, what? We know that she's basically held hostage by these two for a reason. Right? He doesn't know that. So he's very upset. And we get that. He's so resentful of Mom. Like, he's like, no. She has picked the wrong side. So he's willing to fight everyone, including Mom. Right? Mom over here, she doesn't recognize her son. Like, it's been 20 years, it's fine, right? She doesn't have to recognize him the first second, right? So, like, maybe he's covered in blood. Maybe she didn't expect him to be a redhead. I don't know. So she's like, it's just a gladiator. Like, just someone fighting over that. She doesn't recognize him. He does, however. So she's on the list. Like, he has this list. Like, I think of him more like a Jon Snow, but maybe this is like his Arya Stark moment. He's like, who's on the list? Obviously Marcus is on the list. Obviously the Emperors are on the list. Obviously Macrinus is on the list. Everyone's on the list, right? No, Mom is on the list. Like, he's like, no. He's very angry. That just fuels his anger. And also, like, she sitting with the emperors, sitting with the general who just razed his hometown, who just destroyed everything. She symbolizes everything that he hates. Like, this is Rome, right? This is Rome. And he's like, I will take this apart. Yeah. So, conflict is set. Right? We know everyone, more or less now, what their plans are. Okay, so let me see what else we have for that part, because we're already over time that I planned for this part. By the way, since this is part 1 of this video series, I want to give it a title, right? And I named this part very creatively, Far From Home, right? Because now he's very far from home. But is he? You know, maybe not. Okay, so what else do we have? Yeah, I just want to drop another suggestion. Since Ridley Scott is toying with the idea of Gladiator III already, which we will get into in part 3 of this series, but you know, I just recently learned that there was a Roman politician who was who held some rather monstrous animals, like some creepy animals, some animals you don't want to meet, some animals that live underwater, and those are called sea lamprey. And I wonder, like, maybe these sharks in the water, like sea lamprey, I think are much smaller than sharks. It will be sharks in the water, right? But what about there was some sea lamprey in there? And if Ridley Scott didn't use them for part 2, for part 2 of this series, part 3, you know, it's still open. Sea lamprey. If you Google them, prepare not to sleep, right? Because basically they look like eels, like bigger eels, but their face is basically just teeth, right? And they do eat humans if fed to them. So maybe some of these villains' characters, maybe someone of them also holds like a secret pool in the basement where he feeds some people to sea lamprey. You know, they are very scary. You know, they are very scary. And I think they would fit greatly into that. Because this politician actually did that. Like, I'm not making this up. Like, he actually fed his house slaves to these animals, which is a terrible way to go. Like, ugh, very scary. I don't know if he was fed to them in the end. Like, that would be ironic, but okay. So, maybe over here, maybe Macrinus over here, like, he looks like someone who would have, like, a secret basement with some monstrous animals. You know, I don't know. I don't think so, but That would be interesting. Okay, so have we talked about his agenda? I don't think so. Shall we? Shall we talk about this? Because now that Lucius is still alive, which, you know, these two are not too happy about, they're like, what? The loser boat is no longer the loser boat. Obviously, these aren't happy, but what can they say? You know, the gods have spoken. He's got to live, right? So obviously, they get rid of their head game maker, you know, and they need someone new for the job. And Macrinus is like raising his hand, being like, I could do that. I think I'd be good at that. Got some sea lamprey, you know, maybe. Right. Why does he want to be the head game maker? Why? Does he want to be? Like, I think he has to be involved in the games somehow. Like, obviously he sits with the emperors because he's very rich. Like, one thing, he's very rich. Two, he's the one who controls the weapons, right? He's the one who basically, like, the military relies on, right? At least the European part, right? So they're like, yeah, sure, we're besties. Sit with us. But what else does he want, right? He's already worked himself up there. But the thing is, since he is a freed man, he's not really a Roman citizen, and also he's not really accepted by the Roman aristocracy, you know? People don't really think that he's one of them, but he wants to be, right? He wants to belong into a rich society as well. And also, he thinks that these seats, like their seats, they look pretty comfortable. Okay. So, what's his plan? Well, he wants to become emperor, obviously. It's like, yeah. So first, I gotta control these kids. You know, they're in their early 20s. You know, he's like, yeah, it'll be easy. Like, especially that one. Like, he is so hungry for war. He's like, yeah, I can do that, right? So he wants to be emperor, right? He wants to show people he's even better, right? People accept his money, but they don't accept him. But if he sat on their seats, people have to, right? So his plan, like every evil mastermind's plan, is world domination, right? So he wants to be emperor, right? So how does being the head game maker help him? Well, so the head game maker, well, also interesting system, but if you organize these games as head game maker, you also have to pay for them, right? You organize them for the glory of the emperors, for whatever reason, right? You always find a reason, right? But you have to pay for them out of your own pocket. So that means you have to have a lot of money to spare, right? These are super expensive games, right? Super expensive. And through these games, you can basically buy people's favor, right? People are like, oh, Macrinus put up another game, you know, like another days of gaming. Like, you know, people love that. So they're like, oh, he's a good man. You know, he's running for office. Isn't that the one who organized all of these games? Sure, he gets our vote. You know, if you're popular with the people, you get a lot of people following you, right? Because even though the aristocracy holds a lot of money, like everyone else is way more. Like they're the 1%, right? So he's like, yeah, I want to organize the game. I can pay for them. I've got a lot of money. I can buy myself to the top, right? And this is how we also learn that the idea of power structure of this film, like it is a very corrupt, Rome is a very corrupt space, right? It's basically driven by greed, by hunger for power, right? Power is a huge thing here. So we know that these here, like especially these two, you know, they want to be like great emperors in the sense of remembered emperors, not in the sense of good. Right? They want to be great emperors, but they don't got there on their seats because of qualification, but because their dad got them the job, right? Right? And also he didn't necessarily get there because he was the best for the job, but just because he knew how to take it, right? So Macrinus over here just follows that tradition. It's like, power is not given, it's taken. We'll see whether we can turn this around over the course of the film. Yeah. Okay, so he wants to be the head game maker in order to buy people's favor, in order to be very popular, in order to get the Senate on his side, to get the people on his side. Because, you know, if you want to take over, people better like you, right? That minimizes chances of rebellion, right? So this is why he wants his best fighter in the ring. It's like, yeah, he will get me popular. He will be the one people will be rooting for. So obviously, Macrinus over here goes to visit Lucius in his cell and is like, you know, you're my property now. You're gonna fight for me. Maybe he did that even a little earlier in the film. Like, I think that would make sense. But after he bought him in this outside arena, he went in and was like, yeah, I'm your new master. You're gonna fight for me. And obviously Lucius is like, you know, screw it. I don't care. I won't. Whatever it is you want from me, I won't do it. But Macrinus over here is like, yeah, you will at some point. No, you will. Lucius, just the stubborn main character that he is, like, nah, not interested in a pact with the devil. Or more or less, like, they didn't have a devil conception back then. Like, not very popular. Like the Catholic, like the Christians, wasn't very popular, right? So he's like, no, I will not. No, I will not work with you. Then Macron's like, yeah, you will, you know, and I will show you why. So he brings Lucius to a private staged fight in the Imperial Palace, right? Maybe it's the two of them, maybe it's just Gaeta, because historically, these two, they didn't like each other. Like, even though they were close in age, they didn't like each other. And I think that should be the case for the film as well, right? If they murdered their dad, obviously they are suspicious that the other one might have a go with them, right? Because, as I said, two can keep a secret if one of them is dead, right? So you better not be the dead one. So, historically, these two divided the palace into sides. It was like, that is your side, that's mine, right? And they didn't really meet unless for public events, right? So Macrinus is like, yeah, we're going to present you to Gaeta, because obviously Gaeta's interested in this one rogue gladiator who disrupted the whole naval reenactment scene. Like, that was supposed to be like the huge highlight of the games, you know, that was supposed to stress, highlight the power and glory of Rome. And they look pretty stupid now, right? So he's like, yeah, sure, bring him. He's going to fight against my best fighter, right? So it's one-on-one. Lucius against this other guy. And, well, he wants to live, right? So unfortunately, he's really good at fighting, you know? He's really good. It's just the same with Marcus over here. Oh, that's a sad parallel. They're both like, yeah, we're good at it, you know? We're good. So Lucius, to, you know, the entertainment of Geta and his friends killed someone, right? And Macrinus is very happy about that. He's like, sure, you know, that is my man. He's the one. Geta very, very impressed. He's like, oh, he's really good. He's really good. But obviously, like, he needs to be punished. We'll get to that. So Geta's like, yeah, impressive, but well, then you'll die in the next fight or whatever. Macrinus is like, yeah, we'll see. As new head game maker, whatever he comes up with next, it's gonna be huge, literally. So then they go back to Lucius' cell. Macrinus is like, thought about it. You know, I'm pretty powerful. I sit with the emperors. You know, they know my name. I can make your life a living hell. You know, think about it. Just work for me. And it says, put on a good show, like perform well, get me money. You know, win the people over for me, and I can give you something in return. And Lucius like, no. Obviously he doesn't want to. But then, Macrinus, our evil mastermind, right? Evil mastermind. He's like, I see you're full of rage, full of anger. What is it you want? You know, just tell me your price. Obviously, like, nothing you can give me, right? It's like, well, let's take a moment to think about that. Let's step back. Whose head is it that I could give you to satisfy your fury? Translates to make you fight for me, you know? And then Lucius is like, well, the generals will do. And Macrinus says, done, sure, let's do this. Because obviously Macrinus, who controls the military in the sense of that he is the one who gets them weapons, he doesn't have the loyalty of the soldiers. But who does? Marcus. And if you want to take over the throne, you better need the military, right? So he's like, sure, if you want to get his head, like, he's out of my way, works for me. He's like, yeah, I can think of a plan. Oh, he's so brilliant. This is the smart villain we love. So he's like, yeah, I can think of a plan to get you your revenge, right? And Lucius is like, well, this is the whole reason I came here. What else is there? This very much is an offer he cannot refuse. And so he doesn't. And that brings us to part 2.